Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership. Today I'm joined by Chanelle Pearson, who is the Chief of Staff at the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Chanelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, Emily. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to share your story, and I always ask guests how they became chief of staff. And you have a really interesting story that involves media and communications and different things and mayors and all these things. So tell us how you became chief of staff, please.
Yeah, well, interesting is one word for it. Sometimes I think that it's a bit of a story of failure because what I wanted to be always when I was younger was a TV reporter. I loved the news. I loved I suppose, the glamour of it. And that's what I set my sights on, studied incredibly hard, was a really hard worker, would put myself forward for any type of work experience, anything in the media. That's just what I had my heart set on. And then throughout the process, I somehow wound up working in state politics, so in the Victorian state opposition. And after 5 years there, which I loved and just learnt so much, when it came time to move on to, go to the next step in my career, I reflected and I went, actually, I really don't want to do that anymore. I love being on the other side. Some people call it the dark side when you move out of out of media and into advising. But I loved the fact that I could actually help shape the narrative and shape the stories and
Yeah.
make a public policy contribution rather than just report on the stories. And so that's really led me to where I am today through various roles in local, state, and federal government, and also in industry bodies, including the one that I work now in the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I think every chief of staff that I've come across, particularly, all the great chiefs of staff that I come across, are very purpose driven. And I think that that's what drives me, and that's what's kept me over here on the dark side.
Beautiful, thank you. And you mentioned there just a minute ago about the local, state, and national level. And in the United States, we have, I believe, the same structure. So I know I have my local city chamber of commerce, which helps local businesses network and find each other. And then there's the state. We have 50 states, and that's maybe advocating for certain legislation. And then there's the national part. I believe there's an international chamber of commerce that kind of leads into stuff you're doing in the future. But just for general context for our US based listeners, how is that organized in Australia?
In terms of the chambers of commerce, Emily?
Yes.
Yeah, very similar. So we do have local chambers of commerce, so in regional towns and in cities themselves. And then we do also have state chambers of commerce, of which we are one. And then we also have the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we're actually a major shareholder of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry because basically we charge them with doing our national work because it wouldn't make sense for every state chamber to have a presence in Canberra, which is the equivalent to our Washington, I suppose, to do that advocacy work for us. And then, as you correctly mentioned, there is the International Chamber of Commerce and Industry as well, which I'm working really closely with to bring to Melbourne in September, the World Chambers Congress, which is the first time that it'll be hosted here. So it's held in another global city every second year. So Melbourne, first time, incredibly excited to have it. It was held in Sydney, one of our sister cities, of course, in 2017. So that's going to be huge and is keeping me very busy at.
I can only imagine. Yes, and I definitely want to get to that. Just for the Victorian Chamber of Commerce, what is the mandate and what are your main activities and scope there?
Essentially, we exist so businesses in our state can be successful. So we
Mhm.
basically offer every type of service that you need, every type of forum that you need to be successful in business in our state. So we run a series of events. I actually oversee our events team on top of a few other teams. So I think we run something like 120 events a year, which can be
Oh,
anything
wow.
from small roundtables to huge galas and the World Chambers Congress, obviously. So, for example, just this year we ran a major autumn ball and we had as our guest there Eric Banner, whom you might know,
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Greens Worldwide. So, really fantastic events. We run training courses. We're one of our state's largest training providers. We also are the largest connector of apprentices with employers in the country. And we exist, or chambers of commerce exist, to provide that certification to export. So that's called
Mm.
certificates of origin, which is something people don't know that we do. Another really interesting thing that we do is provide basically the passports for goods. So, for
Oh,
example, if you're going overseas to um, put on a concert, all of those equipment, so all the instruments,
oh,
they all need a passport to show that they're traveling and that they're coming back. So that can be really interesting as well. And one area that I'm closest to, obviously, is that advocacy piece. So being that voice, that strong voice for business, which was particularly important here during COVID. As you know, we were the longest lockdown city in the world, I think. So having the voice of business was extremely important. And that was the time that I came over to the Victorian Chamber. So that was sort of part, again, of that purpose for me to help, raise that voice of business.
amazing. And I'm gonna try to not make this entire episode about Eric Bana and perhaps Chris Hemsworth and other actors that come from Australia, some of my favorite. But you mentioned one of your teams, I believe, was the events team, and I'm wondering, so a lot of chiefs of staff we speak to don't have teams, or they have one or two direct reports, and it sounds like you might have multiple teams rolling up to you, so I'm curious about that structure.
Yeah, that's right. I oversee the media function. Obviously, I'm a journalist by trade, and that is my background, so that would make sense. That's how I actually came in to the organisation
Yep.
before I became the chief of staff. Events, yes, oversee the events team, which is an area I've never really worked in before. But I suppose I love people and I love seeing them have a great time. So that was kind of a natural segue for me. The World Chambers Congress, I oversee that department as well, which is probably the biggest project that we've got going on at the moment. Also, our Women in Business program, Chamber
Oh, yeah.
Change, our chief executive and I designed that a bit over 3 years ago now, and we're just about to clock through 500 participants. And we're up to program 9, and our national government through the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry have actually funded it to go national. So over the next few months, I'll be training every other state and territory chamber in the country to run this program. It's been an amazing success and something I'm really passionate about as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. And talk a little bit about that women's initiative. So, was this your idea? Was it in conjunction with your CEO, it sounded like? How did that come about?
Yeah, so the Victorian Chamber for quite a while had wanted to do something in this gender equity space. As we know, there's not enough women in senior leadership positions. And we were looking at, why is that and what can we do to address that? And we didn't
Mhm.
want to just create another program that was, same old, recreate the wheel. So what our chief executive and I did, and it was during COVID too, by the way, so a lot of this was on Zoom, was speak to some of the experts in this field. So we have an organisation here called WGEA, which is the Gender Equity Association, the
Mm.
national association, which is headed up by an incredible woman named Mary Wooldridge. We spoke with her. We spoke with some other leaders in this space, women like Carol Schwartz. What's working, what's not working, where do you think the gaps in the market are? We spoke to other industry associations that had similar programs. And we came up with what we thought was a good idea. And then at that point, we surveyed our members to say, hey, what do you
Mm.
want to see in this space? What do you think that we should create? And out of that, the feedback was that 70% wanted to see more women in positions of leadership and 50% wanted more networking opportunities for women. So
Mm.
from off the back of that, we designed the program called Chamber Change. So effectively, every program is 3 sessions, and the participant groups, there's about 30 in each group in each program, and they hear from our champions. So the champions are senior women in business, so CEOs, vice chancellors, highly impressive women. The idea is if you can see it, you can be it. They speak to our participant groups on the topic of either power, balance, or career journey, and our participants get to hear from them. I do a bit of a Q&A with the participants. Then we also have a networking component and also a presenting with purpose training workshop. So setting our participants up for success. And so then out of that, the 3 sessions per program, cohorts have formed between the participants themselves. They've heard these inspiring stories, and then they go on and basically they're inspired to further their career. And the success stories that I've had out of this program have been like truly incredible. People have told us that it's
Mhm.
life changing, it's encouraged them to go for the next job. They're still in contact with their cohorts. They've found a mentor in some of the champions. And yeah, it's just been incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
And just curious, how did you there's many other programs that do similar things, as you mentioned. It seems like you're uniquely positioned to offer something in that space. How did you find that niche and make sure, okay, we're gonna operate in a different way than what other people are offering?
I suppose just the concept and the position of where the Chamber of Commerce sits
Yeah.
in the landscape, in the business landscape, in that basically we have the connections in with our business network and we see what's going on in terms of leadership overall and how we can play that role and how we can really influence. That's really been our sweet spot, I suppose, in that we're so connected into business and we're a trusted voice. I suppose
Mhm.
we're not just a commercial entity. We're actually very purpose driven, purpose led, and we're trusted by our members. So I think that's why it's been so successful.
Yeah, the trust and the reputation goes a long way. And I remember as chief of staff, I was chief of staff for a company in the private sector, and one of my jobs was to speak with customers and make sure we were getting the voice of the customer into our leadership discussions. So I'm imagining you mentioned survey and different you have different constituents and stakeholders. How do you and your teams make sure that you're hearing the voice of the people around you and what they're asking for and what they're really after from the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, the most important thing is to listen, isn't it? I think in all of those matters, like we're listening and we're talking to our members every day, whether that be, at events or at meetings or at roundtables or we also run task forces. So we'll focus in on
Mhm.
particular issues that we want to speak to our members about and learn more from them about. And that then enables us to shape, what is the position that we then take to usually to government, could be federal or state or local government, but that enables us to speak with authority because we've got the intel from the coalface, if you like. There's an expression that I do love, which is, in God we trust and all others bring data. But we also rely very heavily on surveying our members as well, strength in numbers. And we don't pretend to have all the answers. You have to speak
Mhm.
to people at
Yeah.
the coalface to know. And I mean, I say often chambers of commerce exist to be that conduit between business and government because government can't possibly speak to every business and
Sure.
every business can't possibly speak to government. So that is where and why we exist, and that's a really important role and a role that we take very seriously.
Yeah, certainly. And it sounds like there's two big sides of that. If you're the conduit between business and government, and you mentioned the different levels of government as well, are you doing activities and making sure you're building and maintaining relationships on that end as well?
Oh, absolutely. We talk with government every day on very many different levels. We have a fantastic policy and advocacy team
Mm.
here at the Victorian
Uh-huh.
Chamber who are very tapped into members, but also into government. We have obviously our executive team, our chief executive, myself. There wouldn't be a level of government that we are not talking
Sure.
to every single day. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have that network of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is, a fantastic organisation in its own right. And then
Yeah.
we also have the International Chamber of Commerce, which sort of does that advocacy piece on a global scale. So,
Mhm.
we're a big network and a very important one to be that voice of business.
Yes. And you mentioned some of the internal teams there. So for the fellow chiefs of staff listening, how do you interact with your principal, the CEO? What's your interaction like with the other executive team members or equivalents thereof?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, like a lot of chiefs of staff, my job changes as the needs of the organisation changes. So obviously, I work in extremely closely with our chief executive. My primary role is obviously to be that key strategic counsel to our chief executive. And also on our executive team, we do have our executive assistant, whom I also work really closely with. We have a chief executive of the committee for Melbourne, and that is our top membership tier, essentially. So it's sort of a department within the Victorian Chamber. We have our CFO, our Executive Director of Policy and Advocacy, who I mentioned earlier, our Executive Director, Information Communications and Technology, Executive Director of Commercial Services, our Executive Director, Membership, International and Apprenticeship Services, HR, and then, of course, me. So, how do I work in with the principal extremely closely is the answer to that. We meet formally as an executive team as well and collaborate obviously daily, depends on the projects that I'm working on any particular day. And also given my remit to oversee media as well, that's a daily occurrence and can happen, anytime from 5 in the morning till 11 at night or overnight, because as we know, media doesn't sleep. So a very close working relationship because it needs to be, and it's a great working relationship too. We also enjoy each other's company, have a lot of fun, and get along really well. The executive team are also fantastic, and we very much operate as a unit, and we're very collaborative.
Yeah. How do you balance all that you do? I mean, you mentioned so many different things there. Media is 24/7 and you have that background, so you know better than anyone. And then you have things like I'm organizing this worldwide event coming up later this year. How do you balance all that?
Oh, it's funny actually, Emily. In our Women in Business program, Chamber Change, one of the recurring themes is balance. And one of the analogies that is often used is that four-burner stove. At some
Yep.
point you've got to turn up, work, and then family goes down, or friends are up, and exercise or health is down. And I sort of think of my work life like that. It'll depend on the time and the priorities that need your attention. So at the moment, I'm probably 70% on the World Chambers Congress
Oh,
because
okay.
that's only 6 weeks away, and that's the project that I'm overseeing. So really important and is taking a lot of my time and energy. And then probably our Chamber Change program, as I mentioned, that's going national. So that's taking
Mm.
a bit more of my time at the moment now too. And then you've got sort of media and events, and then, a little bit of traditional chief of staff type duties. And that's probably on the lower end of the burner at the moment. So it just, you've just got to prioritize, have incredible teams, trust your teams, empower your teams. And they will do incredible jobs, which they are. I love seeing people thrive and grow under that. Having that autonomy has been incredible.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm really fortunate to have really great direct reports here at the chamber. So yeah,
That always helps. Yeah.
it's a balance, like everything, like life. You've just got to prioritize day to day, and everyone has the same hours in the day as Beyonce. It's how you.
Yes, I heard someone describe it with it's like an orchestra. You're the maestro, and it's like the will come, but the strings will come up, and then this part will fade out. And I'm like, yes, that's right. It's not balance necessarily. It's just kind of this is being emphasized during this part of the song. But I can relate to you in the sense that I had key initiatives where it's like, okay, I'm being assigned to this. This is going to take 75% of my time. And it sounds like maybe similar to you. I would turn around to my team and say, okay, guess what? I'm going to be over here for 75% of the time, which means for you, you get to step up in these other areas. And my team members were fantastic and they stepped up and did things better than I did. So I'm wondering if that's kind of I love when that happened, the same kind of analysis for you. Hey, I know this set event is coming up. So for the first half of 2025, I'm going to be pretty dedicated over here. Does that give you a chance to speak to your other team members in their roles?
Absolutely. And as you said, Emily, it's been amazing just to see them step up and, run the show, really. It's great to see that capability coming out. And, change is great. Change is refreshing. And, if we can't do that as chiefs of staff, as executives, I don't think that I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So you've just got to sort of roll with the punches and life goes on and just do your best.
Absolutely. So tell us about this. Is it World Chambers Congress? The 14th World Chambers Congress is coming to, and you're running this whole show.
Oh, yes. Well, look, with my teams and across the whole broader department, there's not a person in the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry that doesn't have some kind of role to play in the World Chambers Congress. We sort of refer to it as the Business Olympics.
Ah,
Essentially, it's the biggest business event in the world. Really, it's that opportunity for Chamber of Commerce executives all over the world to get together and share best practice, insights, and intel. As I said, it's the first time that we've hosted. It's co-organised with the International Chamber of Commerce World Chambers Federation and us, of course. And it's a 3-day forum, so global network under the theme of Business Chambers Government Partners for Prosperity. As I mentioned earlier, we really see chambers of commerce as being that conduit between business and government. So what we wanted to really unpack as part of our Congress was, how we play that role. So making
Mm.
it more inclusive of government and chambers, not just, government and business, not just, chambers talking to chambers. And having been to a few of these forums around the world in the last few years and beyond that, it's really interesting that you can kind of pick up any of these congresses and drop it anywhere else in the world, and we're all facing the same issues. It's geopolitical
Yes.
tensions, it's AI, it's energy, it's housing, it's skills shortages, and that has been quite incredible to me. So I, when we were designing this program, it was like, let's explore these huge issues that are relevant for not just chambers, but business and government, and really unpack that on a global scale and see where we land. So we'll be hearing from world-renowned thought leaders and policymakers. The US will have a really great contingent, we hope. We've got Gary Littman, the Senior Vice President of Global Initiatives at the US Chamber of Commerce. We've got
All
the
right.
OECD, yeah, so US coming over. We've got the OECD Secretary General Matthias Cormann, the Director of the Global Indicators Group at the World Bank, Norman Laoza, and many more thought leaders. Our Premier, Jacinta Allen. So it's going to be terrific. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it and looking forward to a rest on the 5th of September.
Not that you have that circled on your calendar and counting down the days or anything. Yes, fantastic. Do you know about how many countries are being represented?
100 countries, Emily. So it's very
Wow.
much, yeah, a global event.
Okay.
And Melbourne is a really multicultural city. I think we're one of the most multicultural cities in the world. So, this is not unusual for us. We're used to welcome, we're basically a country, built on multiculturalism. So, we're a very welcoming city. We're an exciting, vibrant city. Really excited to welcome our colleagues from all around the world. And actually, just later this week, I'm heading over to the US with our chief executive for the American version, basically. So that's going to be
Okay.
really interesting, just to see how what the difference is for Victorian or Australian chambers of commerce, and then how they operate in the US, and also to forge some connections there, and hopefully entice a lot of them to come over to the 14th World Chambers Congress.
Yes, for sure. And so you mentioned a lot of the businesses are coming in are being met with the same issues, so AI and different things like this. How do you put together your program or your agenda? Do you wanna hit the things that have already been talked about, but give the updates? Were you trying to add a fresh flavor to things? How did you put that together?
Yeah, I mean, look, all of the above. We've, as I mentioned earlier, working really closely with the International Chamber of Commerce.
Mm.
We both have incredible policy teams who,
Yeah.
that they look at these issues every day, and they are at the forefront of those issues because they're speaking to our members, they're speaking to government, so they know, what is needed, what do business need to hear, what does government need to hear from business, and
Yeah.
vice versa. So it's very much, what's the status now? How can we work together to achieve great impact in these areas? And what does it look like going forward? So it's a bit of all of that, but very much, I'd say future focused, and how can we make real impact, and can we make a real difference?
Yeah. And is the Congress speaking to economic development? Is that international policy? Is it all of the above? Is there one theme that you and your team have tried to really center and focus it on, or is it just Emily? It's everything and anything.
So the theme overall is business chambers, governments, partners for prosperity. So we're very much
Okay.
centered on how do we drive and influence prosperity, global prosperity, economic prosperity. What is our role in that?
Yes. And if someone in the US or anywhere in the world is listening, they're part of a chamber of commerce, either at the local, state, or national level. Are they invited to come? How do they decide whether they can make it over? What are the requirements? Tell us about that.
Oh, they most certainly are. We'd love to see you all here. Their website is wcc.iccwbo.org, or you can just Google the 14th World Chambers Congress. Anyone can register. So, as I mentioned earlier, we'd love to see business, government, chambers all represented there. And we know from the registrations so far, we're going to get that fantastic cross representation. We also actually got funnily enough, the Chief of Staff Association is one of our sponsors. So
Yes.
we expect to have a large cohort of chiefs of staff. We want to see lots of chiefs of staff here as well. So
Good. We've had Trent on. Good. Yeah.
excellent. Oh, you've had Trent on?
Mhm.
They're fantastic. Yeah, really great organisation, and they're very much leaned into the World Chambers Congress. So it's anyone really who has an interest in that global prosperity. We want to see you here.
I love that. I love that the chief of staff cohort is being represented. So good job, Trent, the Chief of Staff Association. They're an awesome group, and he's got so much energy. So if he's there, he'll bring the life to the party. For folks listening, when is this event?
This event is from the 2nd to the 4th of September, Emily. And of course, there is also a welcome reception. It wouldn't be Melbourne without a party. At Melbourne Sea Life Aquarium on the 2nd of September. And then we have a gala dinner, which will be incredible, which is on the 4th of September on the Thursday. And that's at Crown Palladium, which is one of our fantastic function spaces here in Melbourne.
Yes, and will Eric Bana be attending any of those events at all? Can you get him on the roster?
Oh, you never know your luck in a big city like Melbourne. As you've said, we've got a lot of star power here.
If any of the Hemsworth brothers are there, I will personally fly to that event.
Also from Melbourne, the Hemsworth boys. So who knows?
Yes, yes, and I would be remiss not to ask if you're speaking to aspiring chiefs of staff or current chiefs of staff, what advice or guidance or any pearls of wisdom would you wanna pass on?
Oh goodness, where to start? I think the most important thing is, being yourself, being authentic, being true to your purpose and your values. I think that that's my north star. You can't go wrong, really. I mean, I love that expression to be yourself because everyone else is taken. Like we're in these roles because of what we have to offer. So really lean into that and back yourself. Investing in your network. So, who is going to help you to achieve
Yeah.
your goals? And when I say your goals, I'm talking about the broader organization's goals, the principal's goals. Who are your aligned partners? And get out from behind the desk, meet people, go to events, press the flesh. There's no shortcuts for that personal connection. And being a trusted and encouraging coach and leader for your teams. Again, we
Mm,
spoke a bit about this earlier, Emily. It makes your life a lot easier if you've got fantastic people surrounding you, and you can only do that by encouraging their ambition, their innovation, and their progression. And if your teams are doing well, that's of course a great reflection on you, and it makes expands your resources. So
yeah.
that's really a no-brainer for me, and it's incredibly rewarding. And continuing to grow and learn through further education, reading, self-improvement books, and listening to podcasts like your fantastic podcast, Emily, which I've been doing a lot of myself. And just acknowledging, as you mentioned earlier, about uh, the burners, that burner analogy that we talked about. Givers, as a lot of chiefs of staff are, I
Mm,
think. Looking after yourself and being aware of that need for balance. None of us can do everything. And finally, also, I found my membership of the Chief of Staff Association, as we mentioned a bit earlier, has been really beneficial, both from an educational and a network perspective as well.
very cool. And I don't know if you can think further past the World Congress, but are there any other things that you or the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry are excited for later in the year or even into 2026?
Well, interestingly, and particularly in my role, we actually have a new chief executive coming on board.
Oh.
Yeah, on the same time as the World Chambers Congress. So that's going to be really exciting. A new CEO, a new head, new fresh vision. So that's really exciting for the chamber. And our chief executive, who I've worked with for the past 5 years, has been an incredible leader. Like if anyone could fill those shoes, our incoming chief executive, Sally Curtin, is the woman for the job. And that's really energizing for the organisation, for the business community, and something we're looking forward to as well.
Beautiful. Well, as you and I mentioned before we got on the air, we did see the sunrise because you got up so early to take this call. So now it is light. But thank you so much, Chanelle. Really appreciate you sharing everything. And one more time, the website, if people want to find out more, where can they go for more information there?
It's wcc.iccwbo.org.
Beautiful. And we'll have that in the show notes. Chanelle, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Emily. Congratulations on a fabulous podcast. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.